Today we're going to construct a 6.5 foot deer and rabbit fence inexpensively. I have a garden that's surrounded by rabbits, baby rabbits, deer, baby deer, and last year they decimated my beans, peppers, tomatoes. They always like to pick the nice green ones and put tooth marks in them and just leave them lay on the ground. So this year we're going to attack by making a 6.5 foot deer rabbit fence. Here's the bill of materials. First item is a piece of galvanized used pipe. It's 3/4, I believe, and it has a cap on the end because I'm going to beat on that with a sledgehammer. Some leftover 1-inch water pipe, plastic PVC water pipe. I'm cutting 23-inch pieces off of this leftover piece from a water pipe job. I bought this deer netting on Amazon for $20. It's 7 foot by 100 foot. There's the brand. It's very light. It won't sway in the wind or anything. It just doesn't have that much resistance. But when deer walk up to it, I'm hoping it'll deter them. Next thing, depending on the size of your garden, is I'm using 1/2-inch conduit. It's about $2.60 for 10-foot pieces. You want 10 foot. And I got a bundle of 10 at Home Depot for $26. Then I ordered a variety of zip ties in quantity. There's 500 of them in there from Amazon. I think they were $6 or $8. I don't recall exactly. And some 6-inch sawed spikes. I got these on eBay. Shipped to the house, 200 of them for $22. I think it was. Pretty inexpensive. You can pay $6 for a pack of 10 somewhere, but that's the bill of materials. The plan is, you take the sledgehammer and pipe, beat it 22 inches into the ground. I marked mine with duct tape there so I knew when I hit 22 inches every time I make a hole. Then pound in a 23-inch piece of plastic pipe so 1 inch sticks up. You won't hit it with your lawnmower, but you'll be able to find it next year. And if you need to move the fence for any reason, like to carry water in or whatever you might have to do, you can take it out and put it back in quite easily. Then I'm going to drill holes at the right height in each pipe to put my twist tie through and secure the top of the deer netting with the zip ties. And then I'm going to stake the bottom with the sawed spikes to keep the rabbits out from going underneath. So I already did one up the garden. We'll go up and take a look at that. This is what I have for a garden so far. It's a work in progress. It's last day of April, and I have lettuce, onions, radish. I have some beans, cilantro, whatever seeds I could find around the house I got planted already. And I've been going through that soil. That's a new area, expansion, getting all the rocks out, chunks of grass, crabapple roots and things like, or crabgrass roots. And that's my tomato fence. I don't use tomato stakes anymore. I plant them all underneath that fence. When I get up to the first row of wire, I tie them off, and then I get the second row, I tie them off. No more staking. I can get about 25 plants along there. This is the first hole I did for my fence post. I took the piece of pipe, drove it into the ground, tapping it side to side to keep it loose in the hole. And I drove down the plastic pipe 22 inches, left an inch sticking out so I can find it every time I need to find it, whether it's, when I move it to bring water into my garden or to mow around it. Whatever I need to do, I can just pick that pipe up out of there. I haven't drilled any holes or anything. I was just testing the process for myself. It doesn't have to be too straight in order for it to work, but your neighbors will like it better if it's pretty straight up and down. So try and keep your hole straight when you drive it in. So my next step is, it depends on how many posts you need. You know the size of your garden. You can put them as close or far apart as I'd say 10 to 12 foot. So if you have a 10 by 10 garden, you really only need to do the 4 corners. And maybe add an extra one so you can pick it up and move it out of the way when you're going in and out of the garden. And cut an extra piece of pipe so when you pull that section out of the ground, you have a place to stick it back in the ground while you're going in and out, and then you move it right back. So I'm going to go ahead and saw these off 23 inches long. I have a lot of this kind of pipe laying around. You can probably find some plumbers have leftover pieces and not pay a whole lot of money for it. This is all used, well, not used, but leftover pieces. Okay, I have all the pieces I'm going to drive into the ground. Plastic tubing. As you can see, I found some gas line and some other kind of leftover water line. I had about 30 feet of it in there. And that one piece of gas line is a little bit short, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. Another reason why I'm using the plastic pipe is if it's just in the ground, it'll fill up with grass and everything, and then you'll have to keep making the holes over and over again. You're going to have a garden every year. I like the idea of doing it this way. The next thing I had to do was do some high math so I knew where to drill my holes in the top of the pipe where I'm going to use a zip ties to attach the upper portion of the fence. So a 10-foot piece of conduit's 122 inches, or I'm sorry, 120 inches long. I'm sticking at 22 inches in the ground. That leaves me 98 inches of pipe. It's a 7-foot netting. I'm going to leave 6 for a horizontal. Leaves me 78 inches of netting up in the air. So I want to hang that 98 minus 78, 20 inches from the top. So I'll drill my zip tie holes 20 inches from the top. Here's a picture of the pipe. How I figured it out. 22 inches in the ground. That gives me 78 inches of vertical fence, 6 inches of horizontal fence for the rabbits, leaving me 20 inches from the top. Add that all together, you come up with your 120 inch 10-foot piece of conduit. Next we're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole with an electric drill, 20 inches from what will be the top of the post. Get that measured off. I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie, but I can't do that while I'm filming. So whenever I turn the camera back on, we should have a hole in this piece of conduit. Okay, there's your 1/4 inch through hole. That was a little bit of fun with a drill bit trying to wander off. If you make a little dent with a screwdriver or something first, you might not have that problem, but you can work your way through it, get it to start. I'm going to do this 10 more times for each post. After sliding around with a drill bit trying to do the second hole, I went and dug out a nail punch. This is a pretty antique one, but if you have a nail punch, some other sharp object, you can put a dent to help you start your drill bit. It's going to shorten up the job tremendously. When you finish drilling all your holes, check them for burrs. That's pretty sharp around there where the drill exit was. Even where it entered, I got some sharp. And take them off with a file so you don't accidentally cut yourself when you're putting up the fence or taking it down or handling the pipes. Go ahead and file that burr off. Well, I got all the holes drilled and deburred. Make sure you do that deburr process with a file or you have like sandpaper or something, because some of them are really sharp. But I did 9 of them. I forgot about the one I had in a test hole off the garden, so I had to get all the tools back out and do one. So make sure you have all your pipes lined up before you start. I've laid out all my pieces of pipe. 10 more of them, 11 total. One's for the gate. In a straight line around all 4 sides of the garden. I'm going to get the sledgehammer and start planting them puppies. Well, it's the next day. We got interrupted by rain. I got out my steel tape measure and checked the height of all the holes. It's supposed to be 6.5 feet above the ground. They ended up being about 3 inches further higher than that, because when I put the plastic down in, the end's plugged, and I got 3 inches of dirt in there, which I'm going to go around and knock out and reset them all and check my measurements as I go along. I didn't do that yesterday, so I have my 10 posts in. I don't know if you can see them on there. That's going to be the outline of my fence, and that's where the gate's going to be. There's 2 there together. The simplest way to make sure your poles are in far enough is go ahead and mark the 20 inches of depth that you want right on the post. And then when that line gets down in the ground, you'll know you have 6.5 feet above ground for your fence. Okay, I went around and reset all the posts. It only took about 20 minutes to half an hour, since majority I took them a little deeper. I measured each one, making sure I had the 6.5 feet out of the ground, plus or minus a ½ inch or so. This is one of the dirt plugs that came out of the plastic tubes after I tapped them down in. If they don't go in easy, you're going to end up with these dirt plugs, and that's about 4 inches worth there, and that's why the post won't go down inside the plastic tubing. This is the fence I was telling you about. Too skinny for a deer or a rabbit to get through. And whenever I want to move the fence to make access to my garden, I'll just pull the one on the left and stick it in the pipe that I put in the ground over here to hold it up in the air. And that's how I'll get in and out of the garden. Okay, start unraveling the netting. It's really super light netting. And I attach it to my first post. The holes at the top is what maintains the height. And then I'm starting out with 2 more zip ties. One in the middle and one at the bottom. Not critical wear, just to help support the weight of the fabric. I'm a little bit disappointed in the weight of it. It is extremely light, so we won't know if it's going to hold up the season for quite a while. You're not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to add a step, and I can't stretch it tight enough to keep it from sagging terribly in the middle, like 1.5 feet, just because it's too delicate. So I think I'm going to go get some fishing line. I have a spool of fishing line. You can get a pretty good sized spool at Walmart for $3. I'm going to string it through the fencing like a needle and thread every foot or so, cross back and forth in the top squares, so that it has something to hang on. I can pull it tight using the fishing line. Put the fishing line through the holes. I'm going to go see how that works out, going between this first and second post, to see if I want to continue with that. So I fashioned a needle out of a piece of thin copper wire, put a loop on the end, attached my 20-pound test fishing line, and now I'm going to run it through the top of the fence, going from the first pole to the second pole, so that I can use 20 pounds of pressure to pull it tight. Okay, I used one section of fishing line in between the poles, tied it off on both holes, and now I'm going around up to the second pole. This part's finished except for the sawed staples. I'm not going to record doing any more. I don't want to hear you to hear me swearing or anything, but I think that fishing line is a good idea, because it's just too much weight to hold with just a twist tie at the top. Having that fishing line there tight is going to support the weight of the fence. 20-pound test fishing line, so I feel pretty good about that. Here's one of the parts I've finished. Post, 3 twist ties, enough on the ground to stake with those sawed staples. So I have to implore you to measure your job off before you begin. Make sure you have enough fence. Evidently 100 feet isn't what it used to be. I got up to that far corner. I used up 100 feet, and I probably have another 150 feet left to go, so I have to order another roll. So I won't be finishing this job completely for about a week till Amazon gets me another roll here. The roll will be $20, but I'll have to buy something else I don't need so I don't have to pay shipping. Probably coffee. Chock full of nuts to be precise. This is my garden in the area I fenced in. I'm going to finish up the video, and since it's the first time I did it, I made some mistakes. I have some ideas that'll improve the fence that I'm going to list. Lessons learned, as they say. First lesson: don't put your zip ties too close to the ground. Keep them at least, I'd say 18-20 inches from the bottom, so that when you want to mow or trim underneath the fence, you can lift it up like a skirt. And I used my ground spikes. I just lifted up, dropped the spikes through it, and that kept it off the ground so I could run the lawnmower under it and had plenty of clearance. The most important part of the fence is going to be your fishing line. I didn't even consider that whenever I was planning the fence. I used 20-pound test because that's what I owned. Even a higher test would probably work best. Different thicknesses are stronger. And I don't know what all tests they sell at Walmart, wherever. But anything over 20 pounds will probably service you quite well. When you start your fence, I only left about 2 inches of excess. I would leave 6 inches of excess and take it around the pole, and then with your fishing line, I haven't done it to this pole yet, start at the top, work your way down, going around and around and around using the fishing line like a barber pole spiral, and that'll make 20 or so points of contact holding the end of your fence to the pole. Right now this pole only has 4 points of contact, and in a high wind, and you do get spring storms, the blocks of the fence will just unzip right on. It just goes zip, and I had one piece where I tied this off on the other end, just unzipped and pulled apart. So that's where I learned how to use the fishing line to make a spiral around the pole, through the fence, around the pole, through the fence, 15 times maybe, and then tie it off at the bottom on one of your zip ties. I don't know if you can see it, but we have our top row of fishing line going around the whole installation. I've put a second one here, and I'm going to add a third. So I'm going to add 3 rows of fishing line in and out of the fence, going in and out about every 4 or 5 inches or so, whatever's comfortable. Pulling it through there, tying it off on both poles. I didn't try and go the whole way around. I went from pole to pole to pole to pole, because when the wind blows, if you get leaves on there, or an animal goes into it, or it's wet, it weighs a lot more than it does on a nice day when there's no wind, and it'll create a lot of torque and possibly rip your fence. So the fishing line becomes the structure of the fence, because these squares, although the netting works quite well to deter rabbits, birds, and deer, the fishing line, I've concluded, is what makes the strength of the fence. It'll last you a lot longer. I end up ordering 3 rolls to go around the whole place. That was $60. The poles were 27 or so. The spikes and the zip ties, probably another $20. So it's kind of around $100 I got in this fence. So I need to get more than 1 year out of it, that's for sure. I think the fishing line is going to be the key. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I haven't had any deer prints or rabbits in my garden since I put it up, and that's a nice thing to have. Go to all that work to end up getting what you planted instead of feeding the animals. Check out my other videos, fixing lawnmowers, and don't take a look at Dr. Sigmund Floyd on my list of videos. I made that video. I was pretty funny spoof on stressed out guy. So if your gardening is a stress relief, Dr. Sigmund Floyd can help you with that. Have a great day.